everyone. Welcome to the esports track. I guess it's the first esports session of the day. Today we're going to talk about few things. I haven't checked the program, just kidding. I've seen some good stuff here, but we'll start with a breakout hit of the last year called Guns of Boom. It's one of the games that we've built at Game Insight in the last year. Like, we've launched that 8 months ago, and it grew to almost 30 million downloads, and it keeps growing rapidly. So for those of you who are not familiar what Game Insight is, we're around for like 8 years, got 500 people developing games. We started with Simulation Tycoon, hidden object games, and spent the last 3 years expanding to hardcore, tried building turn-based strategies, space simulation games, and then it clicked with first-person shooters. So just a quick trailer of what actually Guns of Boom, a first-person shooter game for mobile tailored for esports, is. Let's look at a quick video. Yay! So it's been quite a nice road for us. In the last 8 months, we went from zero to that point. We've ran a couple of events. We've signed up a couple of leagues to run tournaments on mobile for us. And it's been quite a discovery. How do you take a game that has been originally a PC game? Actually, Guns of Boom started as a PC FPS like 3 years ago. And throughout that time, we spent so much time figuring out what esports is, how to transition to mobile, how do we simplify controls. I had a whole session about that. We had to remove crouch, jump, all the things that make the game fun on PC, and we had to compromise to deliver the first-class mobile experience. Super accessible game that has recently reached those numbers. And since this session is about mobile esports, let's take a picture of the global outlook of mobile esports. That's my attempt to kind of combine all the games that have been participating in mobile tournaments, that have ventured into that space. Anything from the first games like Hearthstone, World of Tanks Blitz, and then kind of the pivotal moment when Clash Royale has launched, and it took over a year of attention spent from gamers worldwide, sitting non-stop in chart position. And that's the moment when Guns of Boom has launched, and we've managed to snag over 20% of monthly downloads in that niche. And now we see that the niche for mobile esports, for mobile first-person shooters, just keeps expanding. So it started with mobile-like games, then tank-based games, then many more games has launched in a variety of genres. And multiple first-person shooters have tried to do that, but they always lacked something. They have been either too complex, or the theme was kind of restricting. So it took a while to get there. And just for mobile esport, the most significant moment, I would say that Supercell managed to launch a game that has been so accessible, so simple. It had tournaments built in. It has just tremendous things. So the tournaments that they recently ran are amazing. But it's a path for the whole industry, for all of mobile games, to go from just one game to a point when we'll start seeing articles like that. Why doesn't mobile gaming have its own Overwatch League? Why don't we have all those mobile games being played on arenas. Why is this still not happening? And I think this year is a pivotal moment when we finally have 4 or 5 mobile games that are so great that you'd like to really have a league for them. So that question was only raised like a few weeks ago by the press, obviously by anyone in the media, in the industry, investors saying like, hey, we kind of feel it's this explosive moment when we have enough content to actually have things going on mobile. So let's go back to Guns of Women. I would like to kind of identify 3 core things that are required for a mobile game to become kind of esports centric and esports oriented. We've seen many games that have competitive elements. We've seen many games that have great streaming elements. But I think these 2 must be combined to have an esports centric title. First of all, it has to be super competitive, and the second part, it has to be inherently streamable. So these 2 characteristics make it a really great esports-centric game. And we've seen games that have hundreds of thousands of videos or that are being played versus. But then we figured out the third part is when the community just comes in and says, we want to run our own tournaments. That's what we found with Guns of Women. Even before we launched Pro Esports Play Mode, we've had players from day one organizing their own tournaments, running their own mini leagues and saying, we'd like to go bigger. How do we go bigger? How do we run those 64 team tournaments? And how do we run them in multi-tiers? Could you do that for us? So if you have a game like that, where players are just like every day, 64 teams are ready to play like that, if those players are streaming the game and it's fun to watch, and then you've got something on your hands that has to be adapted and scaled for kind of esports way out there. So as I mentioned, like it took us a while to get to a point when we had all those things in place. We've built our own video hub, so players are more willing to share game videos and gameplay moments out there. And throughout that phase, we've started seeing tens and tens of thousands of videos of gameplay being shared. The clans have started running their own channels, and we've started growing at a huge pace because the players have started evangelizing the game. They kept saying, this is the most fair play mobile game out there. It doesn't really feel like a pay to win. You should figure out that too many games have this matchmaking disbalance that makes it really hard to play competitively. It really makes it hard to perceive the game as fair. So that's another definition of things, and not too many games have managed to achieve this balance that makes the game fun without skewing it kind of towards pay-to-win side. So that's the growth that we've had. That's the explosive growth that I was talking about. We're beating our records with every day. We just hit 30 million downloads and 25 million players. So that's over 5 million players in the last month. And actually, we just launched in Korea and Japan like just a few days ago. So this is these numbers. We've managed to achieve that without Asia. So now we're super excited that we'll be launching in China soon. And we are managing to drive those numbers by creating super high quality content that players love to stream. And every time we rotate the maps, we have a limited set of maps, and you could only play like 5 or 6 at any given moment, and then we'll bring new ones, remove the old ones. So players are much more eager to stream all the new content than revisit the old content once we put it back in, kind of rebalanced and with new modes integrated. So I would say that's one of the core characteristics of mobile esports. It should be as fun to play, as fun as watching that. And a lot of the content that we bring into the game has to be explosive. I mean, we have to think about creation of the game content firsthand, that it will be streamable, it will be enjoyable and shareable, it will be viral. And that's what we've been doing. And as I mentioned, like we've got over 150,000 user-generated videos on YouTube, and those numbers have been growing at a steady pace. Now it's actually the growth is more in the channels and the quality of the content than the quantity of the content. We keep seeing the channels with guides, with clans competing with each other, with mini leagues, and that has led to a decision to launch Pro Play, which is a special mode inside the game that has certain caps and certain limitations, making it much, much closer to a paid PC game that's super, super balanced. So you could only get specific set of weapons and specific set of health is being capped, your armor is being capped, and it feels like you're playing, I would say, Quake 1, Quake 2 CDF, so really fair play balanced game. And I used to be a pro esports gamer back in the days, and I realized how important it is to have the super fair play field, to have the same conditions for players here and there. And if you have a game that's kind of free to play, find a point which will make it fair. Like Clash Royale figured out that the deck at level 8, when you go into friendly battle, when you go into tournaments, it might be kind of optimal for those tournaments. MTG has its own rules. Hearthstone has its own tournament rules. So think of finding this middle point of saying, this is the mode that we'd like players to play on a daily basis. So aside from that, like, how do you bring esports to mobile devices? What's the bottleneck that we've been seeing in the last few years? So I think there is this perception, the same you would see between the I would say PC players and Xbox players. They inherently hate each other, and you could remember that Halo was the pivotal moment when actually FPS that was available on the consoles for, I assume, 8 years. By 2003 when Halo launched, was it around 2003 I guess, FPS was already available, but everyone kind of hated it. And it took one game which was Halo, to say, this is the game that we've been waiting for. And since then, you kind of get this holy war between PC gamers and console gamers. So I think the mobile esports have the same problem out there. Everyone hates those mobile players. They're playing from their tiny mobile phones, while cool pro esports gamers play on those $5,000 rigs with 1080 Ti GeForces and beautiful chroma key keyboards from Razer and sitting in comfy chairs at huge arenas. I'm pretty sure that we'll get there as a mobile games industry. We'll start running those tournaments. You've seen what Supercell does with their own in-house produced events. So I think that you need big, huge names, amazing teams, top-tier brands to get to that point. So to get to ESL, to get to arenas with your mobile game, we have to go through a phase of bringing the top-tier names. So that's kind of a small-scale tournament that we would run on our own, bringing players, doing it in a really ad hoc way, then going to EGL and other leagues and running it online as well. So to kind of shift this perception of the problem that, like, mobile esports, this is not serious, it's not that cool. We've signed up 3 most sound names, the winners of ESL 1 at CSGO, and all the other big household names in PC esports. So these guys are going to start playing Guns of Boom, and we hope that throughout the next few quarters, we'll finally reach a point when we'll have a mobile game played professionally by professional players and perceived by professional PC players. And that's going to be that defining moment when we'll see mobile esports really going mainstream and perhaps even going head-to-head with PC esports in terms of perception, in terms of sponsorships, in terms of team and brand sponsorship out there. So how do we get to this point when we have definite mobile esports game? I think, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's a combined effort for the whole industry. It couldn't be just one game. There has to be enough content, the same as in PC. You need to have your own Dotas, LoLs, and CSGOs, and Overwatches to kind of say, we have enough, big enough variety of content, so all the players of different age groups and in different regions could enjoy that. And with that, I'm open to questions, and I really hope this year will kick off mobile esports big time. Thank you. Yes, please.
So traditionally...
Mike? It's okay. Just a sec. Yay.
Cheers, thank you. So my name is Josh. I'm a junior designer from King. And for FPS, games like Halo, Call of Duty have been like one of my passions when I was younger. So one of the challenges I found though with first-person shooters is the fact that unlike an RTS game like StarCraft, the player doesn't actually see what the viewer doesn't actually see what the player sees at all times, and they can't see this full spectrum of what's going on. So they've had to do things like switching between player cams, but that doesn't actually provide the same experience. How have you found overcoming that challenge in producing your own game?
We have really super casual experience for FPS, super light. We don't see any challenges like that, and players are actually not asking those questions. We've been surprised by that. I know that once you go to a more hardcore FPS game on mobile, you get all those questions. So somehow, when you kind of reach a much more casual FPS audience, it just goes away. I've been surprised by that. So maybe it's really not an issue that you have on PC. Mobile players are much more casual than that. So just, I don't know, be brave about it. You might realize it's more simple than it is.
So then on the flip side, games like PUBG on the PC, that's gone viral, and that just has one player cam itself, or you're spectating. What kind of things can we take from that, do you think, to apply to our games on mobile?
Yeah, well, I think that PUBG on mobile, all the clones from NetEase in this game genre like Knives Out and Survivor Royale, they have kind of expanded the audience of mobile esports. They brought top-tier PC pro players towards mobile, and those players came to mobile and they're like, yeah, I actually could play the full PUBG experience. It has all the same features, but it requires me to crouch and jump and do this and do that, and the controls are so complex. So I've shown the graph. This was like, we've peaked in terms of concurrent users recently when all those PUBG clones have launched, because those PC players realized that the controls are too complex, and it's not as fun to play that on mobile. So I think that, like, if you take a look at Fortnite, so Fortnite is kind of super arcadey, super short session compared to PUBG. PUBG typical session is much longer than the Fortnite. Well, full-scale Fortnite session it could be as long. So I would say that the key takeaway here is that there are different types of FPS games, and they're being perceived differently by different audiences of players. And for super casual game like that, like Guns of Boom, we wouldn't find an audience on PC, but we could find it on mobile. The same applies to PUBG. PUBG players would flock to mobile versions of that and would spend some time between the bigger sessions of PUBG, but then they would ask a question, can we actually get a much more casual and relaxed and simplified experience for mobile? So it's a game of compromises. Not every particular game mode, and especially due to the session length. Guns of Boom only has 5-minute sessions fixed time, while PUBG, could scale from 30 seconds. You just dropped and you've been killed with a single punch, or you could last for 20 minutes and you're like just sitting and crouching in the last zone, and you've never even seen a single enemy. So these are two different types of experience, and I think like games like Vainglory has suffered because of that. They've been initially built with much longer session times, and you couldn't play shorter than that because you have to go through the mid game, you have to do a certain push. So you have to defy the rules of traditional gameplay modes for mobile, and you have to compromise a lot. More questions? Do we have more time?
Well, technically no, but we can always open an exception if there is one.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Hope this was insightful.